Welcome to EFT Nation, your home for all things tapping. For show notes and resources, please visit EFTtappingtraining.com. We are your tapping hosts. I'm Alina Frank.
And I'm Craig Wiener. The information provided in this podcast is not a substitute for counseling or medical advice. The information presented here is meant to inspire and educate listeners, but are not guarantees of any kind.
Well, I thought that we should split up this topic of secondary gain / psychological reversal into three parts, into the three categories that we teach in our trainings. Okay. Because I think it wasn't enough, we just couldn't cover it all in one. So if you're listening to this and you haven't heard the episode that we did on psychological reversals, secondary gains, go back and listen to that.
Okay.
And, link it in the show notes.
Yeah. But better define it. Let's let them know what it is just in case they jumped in.
Okay.
So, I've heard it called reversals.
Yeah.
Psychoenergetic reversals, psychological reversals, secondary gains. And what is that?
It's the downside of the upside.
Downside of the upside.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So it's like, what are some of the unconscious fears and resistance, but we don't like to call it that because we don't want you labeling a client saying, you're resistant to change. But it is some part of us that's not ready for all the changes that are happening.
So not ready for change.
I really want to go. I want it to tag the previous episode, which gives a lot of history and information. But let's talk about one in particular, and then we'll do the next two.
One of the categories that these secondary gains might fall under.
Right, and then we'll go into it. I think people get an understanding after that.
What do you want to start with?
Identity.
Identity.
Yeah, because I think it's the one that's most challenging to kind of uncover. Like the safety I get and the deserving I get, but identity is another one that might not be clear to folks. So
in other words, something about I'm trying to change something in my life. I'm trying to change an attitude, trying to change a behavior, a pattern, etc.
Yeah.
And one of the unconscious reasons that I'm being challenged by making that change, by I'm having a hard time completing that effort and successfully achieving that thing.
Or unconsciously, like you're getting better with EFT, feeling good, and suddenly you don't. Mm-hmm. Then exploring, what is that? And then that might be uncovered. An identity issue might be uncovered.
So are you meaning something like the way that I see myself as a cisgendered male, the way I see myself as a provider, the way I see myself as a good father,
right,
or a friend to my kids, or whatever label that I identify myself as an individual, role that I play at work, at home, etc.
Yeah.
That maybe the change that I'm trying to make requires that I have to question that a little bit, change that. Maybe it's something that I've taken on that I kind of I'm wanting to change, but it's really hard because I learned that from my father and his father before him, and maybe it's cultural identity as an individual.
Yeah. Okay, so here's an example from my healing journey when I first found EFT 20 years ago. So one of the things that I had to work on, which was an uncovering of a secondary gain, was identity, in that I was a walking, talking encyclopedia about what to do for my condition. For my autoimmune condition. Like friends of friends and family they would say, call Alina. She knows what to do. She knows. And I had a list of supplements, of dietary things, of alternative things that would help. And so people did call me. And just the other day, someone in our family was diagnosed with that autoimmune condition. And some, blood work that revealed some stuff. And I was like, whoa, that's funny. Like years ago, I would have jumped right in and said, this is what they need to do, blah, 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 blah. So there was ego involved in my identity connected to that. And just enough that I noticed it, and I had to do some tapping on it through my healing journey of my becoming asymptomatic with my autoimmune condition.
Okay, so that's a good one. I remember one that I had to go through that was more vocational and profession related.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're remembering that one.
I sure am.
So for those that don't know, I've been a chiropractor for 30 years now. So that's a long time to be identified as Dr. Craig.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Everybody in town knows me as Dr. Craig. I'm
Yep.
the one you go to for this and that, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Well, there came a point several years ago where I was really feeling the calling to devote more energy and time and focus to our EFT training program and
Yeah.
all things related to tapping, right? And there just wasn't enough time devoted to that, and it was requiring that. I was interested in it. But in order to create more time for this,
Yeah.
the only way to do that was by taking away time from my chiropractic practice.
Yeah, and boy, did that feel uncomfortable.
That was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And Alina, you were more than patient because it took me several years to be able to make the shift that I
Yeah.
knew that I needed and wanted to make.
Right.
And what really came to pass of that was so much of my identity as Dr. Craig, the chiropractor in town. You'd be available this many days, and any good chiropractor isn't going to just be available just a day or two or whatever. They'd be available. And so a big part of the perception that was required, that I perceived of other people perceiving me, really caused that change to be able to let go of a day or two of my practice here and devote more time to here was a big part of related to my identity as Dr. Craig, the town chiropractor.
Sure.
So that was a big hurdle to overcome.
Right. And I'll just reflect back to you that when you dealt with that and you did some tapping and some self-reflecting and all these other things to help you get there, your EFT business started to thrive. And so if I, as your EFT practitioner, would say, oh, gee, might that be some unconscious hidden part of you? Like if you'd come to me and said, why isn't my business growing? Okay, well, let's talk about that. Might there be some hidden unconscious part of you that's in conflict, that's going through, classically it's been called like an identity crisis. Like you just don't know. Okay, you're questioning your sense of self and you're questioning your place in the world.
Yeah, and I'd say on a conscious level, it felt like fear.
Yeah, right.
On a conscious level, it felt like worry.
Sure.
So it wasn't that it was, for me, sometimes they're more hidden than others.
Sure.
But it really wasn't so clear, the identity part. And even though I said I want to do this, Alina, I'm committing to this.
Yeah.
All of those things about trying to do that, I definitely hired somebody else other than you for that one.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so, I had to work on that. And of course, once I did that, then my practice got busier in the lesser days, chiropractically, than it was before when I was more available with more days, and it just became less days but fuller days. So, that's the way it works.
Right. Yeah. So, I see the identity one, because we'll get into deserving. Like I said, there's 3 categories that we see. One is safety, one is deserving, this one's identity. I see it all the time, the identity one, when people around money and manifestation. That's where I see it more. I mean, not that I can see someone saying, well, what if I get rid of my cancer? Who will I be without my cancer? That doesn't generally show up. But I'm going to make $1 million this year. Boy, what does that mean? Because I have a history of hearing from family that, let's say, rich people are assholes, or it's easier to go through the eye of the needle than to get a rich man in heaven, or something like that, which is a biblical quote. So there are who will I be? Will my friends and my family accept me in this new identity of being the wealthy one,
or the generous one,
or
the one who's always there when you need them. Right? I'm the one that I'm the friend that's always there when it's needed. And now all of a sudden I'm trying to do good one. Right? And now all of a sudden I'm trying to do something for myself and resource myself and put myself first. And that is bringing up all this, what will people think of me when I'm not there? for everybody.
Exactly.
That comes up a lot.
Being a caretaker.
Oh my goodness.
And so some of the healing work around physical issues will involve you creating some strong boundaries, and then that's when it shows up. It's like, wait a minute, I can't put myself first. I can't do these things. I can't say no.
Another one I see a lot, and I've experienced it to some degree too, is for those of us, you people that are, what do I say, more type A, more who I am is a hard worker, who I am is efficient and effective, and now all of a sudden, for whatever reason, health reasons,
or just phase of life,
relationship reasons, is like, I need to back off. I was just working with somebody on this and needing, because of health reasons, was in their case, but it could be any of those, of where does this pattern also come from, that I'm only as good as the number of hours I put in.
Yes.
As the amount of effort I put towards that.
Yes.
And for me to back off and have more work-life balance is now going to be, my fear is I'm going to be perceived as a slouch, as a, whatever term you want to use for not working hard enough.
Right.
Right? Family members' perception, friends' perception.
Right. And how about identity as I'm the baby in the family? I am the firstborn in the family.
And therefore, that means
if I'm going outside of that because my goal and what I want to achieve is going beyond that limiting identity, then there might be some conflict and some self-sabotaging that goes on.
Yeah. So when you said that, what was interesting is like, well, you can't change being, the baby of the family.
Right.
And often this kind of conflict is, on one hand, wanting to be respected and not being treated like the baby of the family.
Exactly.
And yet,
yeah,
there could be some advantages to being maybe the youngest because you're not perceived as, not being required to do as much, not being required to have certain responsibilities. And all of a sudden, stepping out and holding a leadership position, stepping out of the baby of the family, so to speak, with the least expectations. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, wow, there's some kind of advantages of not being seen and not being expected and not having the same responsibilities.
Yes.
And again, often they're not conscious, and yet they're there and often stall the progress we're trying to make or slow it down.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go over again, because I think it's worth repeating. How does it show up? Aside from you just like, feeling
procrastination,
right?
Stall in progress within the EFT work is like it
not
feels
doing
like
your homework.
Not
like your practitioner assigns you some tapping homework and you don't do it.
Little avoidance. Yeah.
Yes.
Distraction.
Right.
Getting distracted. Hey, I got other things that are pretty important here.
Or not seeing results.
Yeah, that's often. Or progress results slowing, often because, if you're out there looking for help, there's, whatever percentage of you really wants to change. You're paying for a practitioner, you're seeing somebody, there's certainly a part and some percentage of you that is trying to heal.
Sure.
So, the way that I often use it as the analogy is, we live on an island, and right now I'm looking across the water, and I imagine that I have a small little crabbing boat, and I'm imagining, right, that I'm going straight across to the other island, and I keep veering to the left. No matter how I steer it, it kind of keeps turning left. I'm trying to get to this island. I'm trying to get somewhere and accomplish that. But it's like something is turning me away from that.
And what is that? The tide,
and
the undercurrent.
It is. The way that I like to put it is, I look behind me and there's this little metal flap that's stuck. It's a little rudder. It's a little flap of metal.
Yeah.
It's only like 1/100th the weight of the boat.
Right.
And yet it has me keep sliding left of where I want to go.
Yeah, I like that
and
metaphor.
not getting there. Yeah,
because it's under the water.
It's under the water,
which
so
means
it's unseen,
right, exactly,
unconscious.
Like that.
It can be such a small part of you, but it's a critical part.
Yes.
Right, that totally affects the direction that you're going. Right, so yeah, I like that.
So if you're a practitioner listening to this, please use that metaphor instead of something like you're resistant to change, or
why do you think you don't want to get better?
Yeah, you're a victim.
Well, please, I can't even imagine a practitioner saying that. So
okay,
don't even go there.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I see that in the self-improvement world.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like,
Outside of EFT.
Right.
Okay.
So, yes. So let's talk about how to address this, and so those are great ways to uncover it, right? All the procrastination, all that. But
Well, not only that, actually, I just want to add one thing, because this is actually something often you say is, what's a question that you might ask somebody when you're they're making progress and they're stalling, and and again, the condition, if this has been there, if this problem has been there for at least 6 months, you got to figure that there's some secondary gain there,
Yes,
because they've adapted to that new way of being, and so etc. So one of the questions that you can explore with them to find out and kind of help to uncover it in a very gentle way is having them imagine the thing that they want happening.
Exactly.
So, okay, thinking about accomplishing that.
Picturing yourself happy, healthy.
Oh my God, that would be
whole.
Great, right? I mean, the first response is going to be, yes, well, that's exactly what I want. Of course, mostly. Yeah, okay. Well, yes, I'm excited and happy, but...
So really get into it. Close your eyes. Really imagine you being in that place. And how are you feeling?
And losing that weight, and being over that condition, or whatever it is.
Whatever problem you're working on.
Right.
Do you have any secondary gains attached to it? That imagining yourself getting to that goal, reaching that place is going to reveal what might be the conflict there. And also just, I think journaling is really, it could be really enlightening when you sit down and ask yourself, if there was a reason why, if there could be a reason why, all of me,
small part of you was fighting against this.
What might that be? What part of me is not on board with this?
And with identity, because so much of our identity is of an interpersonal nature.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
That's
not only how you see yourself, but how you view others viewing you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really, so thinking about the key people,
Yeah.
Whether it's your colleagues at work, or whether it's your family members or your partner or children or whatever, the people that you care about, how they're going to perceive you differently with this new change. That's a pretty good place to bring up identity conflicts.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote this down in my notes, thinking that that I wanted to talk about this because it's a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome. So it's doubting that you have the ability to accomplish something or to do something, and feeling like a fraud. Like, even if you have all the degrees and you have all of the certifications and you have so there's nothing external telling you that you're not good enough, but it's an internal feeling like I'm a fraud. Somebody's going to find me out. So with all of these things, we go back to the most effective use of EFT is to find those events. That doesn't just come out of the ethers. That is because you've had an experience of that, of you actually not doing something well, or of people criticizing something that you did if it wasn't to their liking in some way, shape, or form.
That's going to come up again when we talk about deservement.
Oh yeah.
And that's going to be a big one with that.
Yeah.
And, how funny it is that some of the most educated, most degreed people I know.
Yes.
You would think that if anybody would consider them smart enough, would anybody, accomplished enough, etc. And often they're the ones with the greatest degree of self-doubt and feeling like a fraud. And people will find out that I'm really not as smart as. Right. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that in myself to a little bit. Like, if people really knew, they think I'm like this, but if they really knew, so, that's an important one. That's a good one.
I'll also mention here that there's a big wave of people these days in the last few years that have been part of what's been known to be called the deconstruction movement, which is the idea of, does my religion serve me anymore? And so that's a huge identity crisis for someone that's dealing with the pain and the trauma of their lives, and really examining, all right, does this religion still align with who I am on my spiritual journey? And so that, be compassionate with yourself for sure when you're doing this work.
So what is the identity and secondary gain with that? Clarify that for me a little bit.
Well, for sure out of my community.
So another.
Yeah.
So if I come out and if I decide this is no longer in alignment with my values,
yes,
and then I walk a path of integrity for me,
right,
that's outside that organization, church, religious body, whatever,
right, yeah,
then the secondary gain. So what I want to clarify, the secondary gain is what keeps me inside and not stepping out.
Exactly.
And so even though I'm struggling to realign myself with something different, the secondary gain of not being able to achieve that is by having the comfort of connection or the lack of judgment that people might have about me if I stepped outside.
Yes.
So that's the gain.
Yeah.
The gain is not of getting the thing I want, which is walking in alignment. The gain is by not achieving that and staying here on this side.
I'll have a community. Right. I'll have my identity. I know who I am.
Right.
And I can say I'm a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu. Yeah. Yeah. Really interesting. Okay. All right. So hope we've given you some ideas here, and looking forward to the next one. Let's cover, what do you want to do? Deserving?
Yeah.
Safety.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Let's do deserving.
Yep.
All right. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us today at EFT Nation. And remember that you can find show notes and previous episodes at EFTtappingtraining.com.